My name is Evan Holloway. I was 21 years old, a junior in college, when the first thing happened. I want to say this up front, because I know how these stories sound once they leave your mouth and enter someone else's ears. I've replayed this memory 100 different ways, looking for rational explanations. Alcohol, exhaustion, group hysteria, something we did and forgot. None of those explanations survive contact with what we found that morning. It happened during spring break, one of those rare weeks when deadlines pause, and real life loosens its grip just enough for you to feel free. Me and my 3 closest friends, Lucas Mara and Jonah, decided to go car camping out west. We'd been doing trips like this since freshman year. Nothing fancy. Just a car, cheap gear, bad food, and enough open land to forget who we were supposed to be. We were broke that semester. Like counting quarters at the gas station, broke. So instead of paying for an established campground, we opted for dispersed camping. Free land, no bathrooms, no rangers, no neighbors. I found the spot on one of those camping apps that catalogs unofficial sites people leave reviews on. It was listed as a clearing off a Forest Service road somewhere outside a small mountain town I'll call Red Willow, tucked deep into the backcountry. The reviews were sparse. Mostly things like quiet, isolated, beautiful stars. No photos. That should have been the first red flag. The road leading out there went on forever. Paved at first, then gravel, then dirt. Eventually, it became little more than a scar carved through trees. The farther we drove, the more the world seemed to narrow. No houses, no signs, no cell service, just pine and shadow and the constant crunch of tires on loose rock. We arrived in the late afternoon. The sun was already starting to lean west, stretching long fingers of light through the trees. The site itself was a clearing near what looked like an old creek bed, completely dried up but worn smooth by water that had once rushed through it. The area felt untouched. No recent tire tracks, no trash, no fire rings, no sign anyone else had been there in a long time. It was perfect. We set up our tents in a loose cluster maybe 15 feet apart. Nothing deliberate about it, just wherever the ground looked flat enough. I remember joking that if a bear wandered through at least, it wouldn't take all of us at once. That night is a blur. Cards, warm beer, laughter that echoed a little too far into the trees. The kind of laughter that feels louder in the wilderness, like it doesn't belong there. By around 11:00 p.m., exhaustion won. One by one, we retreated to our tents. Here's the part that still doesn't sit right with me. I am a light sleeper, always have been. At home, I wake up to the slightest noise. On camping trips, it's worse. Cold, wind, branches snapping, my own breathing. I wake up constantly. That night, I didn't. I slept like I was sedated. No dreams, no half-awakenings, no tossing or turning, just blackness. When I woke up, the sun was already high enough to glow through the fabric of my tent. That alone felt wrong. I should have woken up freezing hours earlier. I unzipped the tent to let in some air, and then I froze. All 4 tents had been moved, not disturbed, not knocked over, not dragged by animals. Moved. They were arranged in a perfect square, equidistant from one another, surrounding a small pile of stones at the center of the clearing. For a moment, my brain refused to process what I was seeing. It felt like stepping into a dream mid-scene, the logic of it just barely out of reach. Each tent had been relocated maybe 20-30 feet from where we'd originally placed them. But the thing that made my stomach drop was this: the stakes were still secured. perfectly driven into the ground, as if the tents had been lifted, fully assembled, and set back down. I backed into my tent and checked everything: my sleeping bag, my phone, my charger, my pack. Nothing was missing. Nothing was disturbed. I yelled for the others. Lucas was the first to emerge. He took one look around and went completely silent. His face had that same hollow confusion I felt in my chest. Mara and Jonah followed seconds later. I watched their expressions change in real time. Confusion, disbelief, fear. None of us remembered anything. Then Mara spoke. She said she'd had a vivid dream. She described walking in a straight line across some kind of barren landscape. A desert, maybe. She said someone was walking beside her, counting her steps out loud. Lucas went pale when she said that. He told us he'd dreamed he was marching, in formation, like the military. Rows of people moving in unison. Someone shouting commands. Jonah and I hadn't dreamed at all, but the similarities were impossible to ignore. The air between us felt wrong, thick, pressurized. It was like we were all tuned to the same frequency, sharing something we couldn't articulate. The best way I can describe it is this. It felt like there was a fifth presence there. Not standing with us, but somehow inside us, watching through us. We searched the campsite for answers. Lucas suggested maybe we'd gotten drunk and rearranged everything ourselves. The idea didn't last long. We found drag marks in the dirt, leading from each tent's original position to where it ended up. They stopped about 10 feet short of the final placement, as if whoever or whatever had dragged them partway then lifted them the rest of the way. The stone pile was worse. Exactly 4 stones, stacked carefully, balanced with intention. It looked almost artistic, almost reverent. Lucas leaned in to examine it and tripped, knocking the stones apart. They scattered harmlessly across the dirt. For a second, none of us spoke. Then we heard it. A low, rumbling sound, distant but unmistakable. Like rocks grinding together. Like something ancient shifting in its sleep. It wasn't an earthquake. It wasn't thunder. It sounded like a stone door being opened. At the exact same time, that was when panic took over. We didn't discuss it. We didn't argue. We just packed. It felt synchronized, like we shared a single thought. I could feel their fear, and I knew they felt mine. We were gone in under 5 minutes. I don't like thinking about that night. I've learned that the more attention you give certain memories, the more real they become. That was 5 years ago. We don't really see each other anymore, and none of us have ever talked about it since. I thought leaving it behind would be enough. I was wrong. I thought that nightmare had reached its peak that morning in the mountains. I truly believed that whatever had followed us into that clearing had been left behind when we drove away. I was wrong. 5 years later, I was 23, and my life looked very different on the surface. New city, new job, new relationship. But underneath all of it, I carried that same quiet unease, the feeling that the world had teeth, and sometimes it smiled just long enough for you to get comfortable. Her name was Lena. We'd been together for about 1.5 years. Long enough to settle into routines. Long enough for the excitement to soften into something quieter. Not bad, just familiar. Predictable. We both felt it, even if neither of us said it out loud. So we planned a camping trip. Just the 2 of us. No friends, no service, no distractions. A reset. We chose a small campground buried deep inside Black Pine National Forest. A place with only a handful of sites spread far apart. According to the reviews, it was quiet. Remote, but not isolated. The kind of place where you could feel alone without actually being alone. We left on a Friday afternoon, stopped for groceries near the forest boundary. and reached the campground just before sunset. The access road was rough potholes, loose gravel trees, crowding in close. The farther we went, the more the world seemed to close behind us. There were a few picnic tables, old fire rings, wooden site markers that looked like they hadn't been replaced in years. Most of the sites were empty. One wasn't. A blue sedan sat parked near the middle of the campground. No people in sight. No fire. No movement. Lena pointed toward the farthest site, right where the road dead-ended into the trees. The forest wrapped around it on 3 sides. Private. Sheltered. We set up as the light faded. She was particular about the layout tent placement gear arrangement where everything belonged. I didn't mind. I let her take control. It felt normal, comfortable. By the time the fire was going, night had fully settled in. For a while, everything felt right. We drank beer, watched the flames, talked about nothing and everything at the same time. The forest hummed softly around us, wind in the trees, distant insects. Then Lena went to brush her teeth at the spigot near the picnic tables. I stayed by the fire. That's when I noticed him. He stood just beyond the edge of the firelight, close enough that I should have heard him approach. I hadn't. He apologized for startling me. Said his name was Caleb. He looked to be around 30. Average build. Plain clothes. Nothing obviously threatening, except his eyes. He maintained eye contact just a beat too long. Didn't blink much. It felt like he was studying me rather than talking to me. He said he was camping alone. Needed to get away from people. Lena walked back into the firelight, and the shift was immediate. It was like I ceased to exist. Caleb's attention locked onto her completely. He complimented our site. Said it was real secluded. Said it like it meant something more than it should have. Lena gave polite, uncomfortable replies. Short answers. Her body angled away from him. I interrupted, told him we were turning in early. That did it. He apologized again and walked off into the darkness. No flashlight, no phone light, nothing. We both commented on how strange the interaction was. Then we did what people always do in situations like that. We minimized it. By the time we crawled into the tent, the forest felt quieter. Too quiet. Like it was listening. I don't remember falling asleep. I remember waking up. Voices. Low. Muted. Somewhere near the campsite. Lena slept beside me, breathing slow and even. I listened, heart pounding, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. 2 voices. Maybe 3. Conversational. Calm. Not drunk laughter. Not arguing. Talking. I unzipped the tent as silently as I could and leaned out. The voices stopped instantly, like they'd been waiting for me to move. I scanned the campsite with my phone flashlight. Nothing. No movement. No shadows. Eventually, I went back inside. The next day was almost normal. We hiked, laughed, tried to shake the feeling that lingered just beneath the surface. That evening, I went to grab firewood from the truck. That's when I saw the note, folded neatly, tucked under the windshield wiper. You should move your tent. My stomach dropped. I showed Lena everything, the voices, the note. Before we could decide what to do, Caleb appeared. Same clothes, same posture, same unblinking stare. This time I didn't play nice. He apologized again, said he was just checking on us. Then he told us about the weird things that happened out here. Abandoned camps, personal belongings left behind, sounds at night. He said he'd heard people walking around his car the night before. Said he was leaving before dark. He suggested we do the same. We packed fast. Too fast. The sun dipped below the trees as we loaded the car. As we drove out, I noticed Caleb's sedan still parked in his sight. He was crouched near one of the tires, slashed, deep, deliberate. He asked for a ride. Lena whispered no. I told him I'd call for help when I got service. We drove. 100 yards down the road, I saw them. 3 figures, standing in the trees, watching. Lena screamed. I hit the gas. We never heard back about Caleb. I still don't know if he was a victim or bait. I thought leaving would end it, but it didn't, because 2 years later, alone in the Montana wilderness, I learned something far worse. Some places don't let you go. I believed that if I stayed moving, if I didn't look back too often, the world would eventually lose interest in me. That belief didn't survive my 28th year. By then, my life had collapsed quietly. No dramatic explosions, no shouting matches, just paperwork, boxes, signatures. A divorce finalized in a sterile office that smelled like toner and old carpet. 3 months later, I was living alone in a small rental outside Northridge, Montana, working remotely as an IT consultant. The job paid well enough. The days blurred together. I wasn't coping, I was existing. Every night felt the same. Long, hollow, heavy. I couldn't sleep, and when I did, I woke up feeling like I hadn't rested at all. At some point, probably around 2 a.m, staring at my ceiling, I convinced myself that the only way forward was to disappear for a while. Not metaphorically. Literally. I needed to be alone. Truly alone. Camping had always been my reset button. I grew up in the outdoors. Scouts, long trips with my dad. Navigation. Survival. Solitude wasn't a fear for me. It was familiar. But this time I didn't want trailheads or permits or other people's voices echoing through trees. I wanted somewhere untouched. So I went digging. Deep forum threads. Old posts. Half-broken links. Eventually, I found references to a handful of unofficial backcountry clearings buried deep within Gray Elk National Forest. No coordinates, just vague descriptions. Past the 3rd Service Road, overgrown trail. If you reach the creek, you've gone too far. That was enough for me. I told only my brother I'd be gone for a bit. No exact location, just a general area. I loaded my truck with enough supplies for over a week. Freeze-dried meals, water purification, medical kit, and my rifle. I'm not a gun guy, never have been. But going that deep into the Montana wilderness without protection isn't bravery. It's stupidity. The drive took about 4 hours. The first 3 were easy. The last stretch was a mess. My GPS gave up entirely, constantly, rerouting me to roads that didn't exist anymore. Eventually, I found what looked like an old trail barely wide enough for my truck. Branches scraped against the doors. Twice, I had to get out and clear debris. When I finally couldn't go any farther, I shut off the engine and listened. Nothing. No wind, no birds, no insects. That should have unsettled me more than it did. I stepped out of the truck and immediately spotted the clearing. Perfect. Flat. Ringed by trees. Everything I wanted. Except for the tent. It stood on the opposite side of the clearing. Old. Olive green. Sun-bleached and sagging. The kind of tent you don't see anymore. It looked abandoned. Not recently years. Mold crawled across the fabric. Dark stains bloomed near the seams. I called out. No response. Curiosity got the better of me. I approached, unzipped the tent, and immediately recoiled from the smell. Rot. Sweet and sour and unmistakably wrong. Like something organic had decayed slowly, deliberately. Inside was sparse. An old sleeping bag, a few rusted soup cans, and a small notebook. I grabbed the notebook and backed out into the clean air, gasping like I'd surfaced from underwater. The pages were filled with tally marks, hundreds of them. all grouped in sevens. The final page had 42 complete groups, 8 months. I didn't feel fear yet, just intrigue, a mystery, something to distract me from myself. I decided to set up my camp on the opposite side of the clearing, far enough away to feel separate, close enough to keep the tent in sight. I explored for hours. No trails, no fire rings, no trash, no sign that any human had ever been there. That night, the stars were incredible, sharp, endless. I fell asleep fast. I woke up to whispers, low voices, multiple, close. I didn't move. My heart hammered against my ribs. Sweat pooled at my neck. The voices sounded conversational, almost casual, but I couldn't make out the words. Then footsteps, slow, intentional. They circled my tent. My hand went to the rifle. Someone tugged on the zipper, hard. When it didn't open, they scratched at the fabric, like claws, like nails, like they were testing it. I shouted that I was armed. Silence. Then, running, multiple directions. At least 3 people. I didn't sleep again. At sunrise, I stepped outside with my rifle raised. The old tent was gone. No depression in the grass. No stake holes. No trace it had ever existed. But the footprints were everywhere. Bare feet, different sizes. Deep impressions like they'd stood there for a long time. One trail led to a pine tree at the edge of the clearing. That's where I saw the marks. Fresh, tally cuts. 7 groups of 7. And the start of another. My stomach dropped. Then I saw the squirrel, dead, hanging from a low branch, bound with fishing line. Arranged. Not killed for food. Not killed by an animal. Displayed. That was the moment I understood. The notebook wasn't a record of survival. It was a countdown. I packed faster than I ever had in my life. Every sound made me flinch. Every shadow felt closer than it should have been. I half expected my tires to be slashed. They weren't. I backed my truck out of that trail, inch by inch, sweating, shaking, waiting. Nothing followed me. I never reported it. What would I even say? The thing that haunts me isn't the whispers, or the tent, or the figures in the woods. It's the math. Because when I checked the notebook again at home, I realized something I hadn't before. The tally marks ended on the day I arrived, which means someone or something had been waiting. And the cuts on the tree, they weren't finished. I don't camp anymore. But sometimes, late at night when my apartment is silent, I swear I hear movement outside my window. And I can't shake the feeling that the count didn't stop. It just moved on to the next place, to the next person. And one day, it might come back for me.